in an article that was authored about this time last year, and I'll quote you from that article. It was about Guinea at Crossroads. You said in the lines that start, when they killed my son, they killed me too. I would have preferred it if you'd have left him alive and killed me instead. With regards to Uganda's case, do you think this looks like it's coming from, it could be put in any part of Africa? What do you think as Human Rights Watch's Advocacy Director for Africa we could do to stop the same story going on in every country?
Well, that's a very serious question, and it's a question that I think lives with all of us, not just with Human Rights Watch, but also with any advocate. Martin just said that he's infatuated with the issue of democratization in Uganda. And I think every peace lover, every activist, every researcher has that question in mind. But let me just, I think I would like to reference something. I hope that our discussion will not focus on how the West can end the deteriorating human rights situation in Uganda, but rather how Ugandans can leverage their agency, technological savvy, and resilience to bring those to the fore in order to uncover and push for change, to uncover serious human rights abuses. And let me just, from a Human Rights Watch standpoint, we've worked in Uganda since the 90s, actually. So there's a whole body of work, whole body of advocacy, even before I joined Human Rights Watch, which I joined in 2018. And I think what we've covered, when you look at the different issues, there's certain themes that keep coming back. The killings, extrajudicial killings by security forces, arrest and beatings of opposition supporters and journalists, disruption of opposition rallies. Now, we also have the weaponization of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, which we also covered and documented, and the instrumentalization of the internet. And I think it's also important to highlight the fact that what we document and expose has already been uncovered and documented by local partners, by organizations on the ground. And what we do essentially is threefold, and I'm going to respond to your question now. First off, we attempt as much as possible to provide an environment in which the international community, in this case, Uganda and Uganda development partners, is aware that serious human rights violations are committed, and we try to avoid a situation where those abuses are hidden, because that's what governments will tend to do, is to hide, and they increasingly have become very sophisticated at that. The second thing we try to do is to provide an environment where abuses are documented, which is, I think documentation is very important, and preserved for justice and accountability purposes, whether it's in terms of current processes or future processes. And finally, we try to work as much as possible with local partners to elevate and amplify their voices. And we advocate for the restoration of, ultimately, the victim's dignity and their right to obtain justice and ultimately break cycles of impunity. As I said, we've worked for a long time in Uganda, and I'll never forget, I was reading an article just immediately after joining Human Rights Watch, trying to accustom myself with some of the work that we had done in the 90s. And I'll never forget, I read an article, rather a statement by a former Uganda researcher. And he had this to say, and it's very interesting. It was in 1999. Government harassment and discriminatory legislation are suppressing independent political activity in Uganda. Uganda has become the darling of the Western powers, but Uganda is moving away from democracy, not towards it. And at that time, as you know, more than I do, the ruling party, the NRM, had structured an environment where there was just a movement. It was called the movement. And my former colleague had to say that the political system was inherently hostile to democratic freedoms. That was in 1999, very current today. Let me just stop here.